In our previous video, we looked at finding the solutions to a linear equation. In this video, we're going to look at finding three solutions and then also how to plot those so that we can use them to graph the linear equation. Now, in our previous example, we were given a series of x values and we simply plugged those values in and solved for y. But it's important to recognize that we can actually use whatever x or y value we want to if we're not given specific values to try. So we can choose x and solve for y, or we can choose y and solve for x. It's really up to us with which way we want to go. Now, I'm going to try a couple of different options here. So I'm going to start by letting x be 0, and I'm going to solve for y. Then I'm going to let y be 0, and I'm going to solve for x. And then I'm going to let x be 2, and I'm going to solve for y. But again, I chose these values, and I didn't exactly choose them randomly, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. But I did choose these values on my own. You could have chosen to use 1, 2, and 3 for x, or 1, 2, and 3 for y. You're still going to get points that are on the line. Those points are still going to allow you to be able to graph. It just depends on how easy it's going to be to calculate the other value, and then also how easy it's going to be to plot these points on the graph itself. So let's start by finding our three solutions. So we're going to start by plugging 0 in for x. So we have 3 times 0 minus 2y equals 8. Well, 3 times 0 is just 0, and 0 minus 2y is just a negative 2y. So what we end up with is negative 2y is equal to 8. Divide both sides by negative 2, and y is equal to a negative 4. So when x is 0, y is negative 4. So that's the first solution to our equation. Now let's plug 0 in for y and solve for x. So we have 3x minus 2 times 0 is equal to 8. Well, again, 2 times 0 is just 0, and 3x minus 0 is just 3x. So we end up with 3x is equal to 8. Divide both sides by 3. And x is equal to 8/3. So when y is 0, x is 8/3. And then last but not least, let's let x be 2 and solve for y. So we have 3 times 2 minus 2y is equal to 8. So 3 times 2 is 6 minus 2y is equal to 8. Subtract 6 from both sides, and I get negative 2y is equal to 2. Divide both sides by negative 2, and y equals negative 1. So when x is 2, y is negative 1. So now we are ready to plot the points, the solutions, the ordered pairs that we came up with, and then we can connect those in order to graph the equation itself. So I have 0, negative 4, so I'm going to go 0 on x and negative 4 on y. And there's my first point. And you'll notice this one's going to be a little harder to graph because it's not an integer, but we can convert 8/3 into 2 2/3. So we're going to go to 2 and then 2/3 on x and 0 on y. So there is the point 2 2/3 or 8/3, comma 0. And then we have 2, -1. So we go to 2 down to -1, and there's a third point. Now, we only need 2 points in order to graph a line, and actually in MyLabs Math, when you're doing your homework, it's only going to allow you to plot 2 points. However, we do want that third point as just a test point to make sure that our line does make sense. Because if you think about it, any 2 points can be connected with a straight line. However, that third point is going to tell us whether or not all of our points are in line. If we make a silly mistake, like with a sign or something like that, our points are not going to be in a straight line, and then that's going to tell us that we don't have something right, and we need to go back and find where we messed up. Now, you'll also notice that when I connected these 3 points with a straight line, I did put the arrows on the end because that indicates that it goes on forever. And if we were able to randomly choose any point from this line, then we could find the X and Y coordinates for that point, and we could plug those into our equation, and we would get a true statement. Because that's what the graph is. It's just a visual representation of all of the points that are a solution to this equation.